Hello there. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Yeah, welcome. This is hopefully going to be video number 2. I've tried to tweak some of the audio settings. I do pretty much move non-stop, so I've tried to get the best balance of volume, camera positioning, lighting, but I'm mindful already I've got like this stupid light bulb over there. It's kind of, I'm blocking out half my face with this. Just work with me, all right? I think it's a good, happy balance. We've got the dual cam going, so you should be able to hear this, hopefully. We've got second keyboard, we've got some lighting, loads of stuff going on. Okay, so hope you're well. The video today is going to be looking at sample libraries, some technical stuff, as well as, you know, what are they, what's the problems with them. There's lots of different things to go through with them. So this video is going to get absolutely no views, but for that one person that finds it and watches it, let me know, because I've watched a similar video when I was probably 16. Changed my life, genuinely. Not saying, you know, I'm going to change someone's life with this, but sometimes it's just the things you don't know. So I kind of want to go through that. So my whole thing, special interest and all that, strings. Absolutely love it. I've got such a setup now that I'm honestly convinced if I was to play all of these at once at the moment, that you'd probably be floored with how good it sounds. Better than my mic quality, I assure you, which I don't think is that great. So, oops, let's try and get the programming right for. Hope I've played something nice. So this is, I'll try one last time. Oh, too many notes. That's just no playing. I've just loaded up my VSTs and my VSTs being with virtual instruments, and I've just plugged something in. Sounds glorious. I'm not going to say it sounds perfect there, but a couple of little tweaks. So if I just grabbed all my like legato-y bits and tried that again. Right, and then I've got all this kind of green stuff, hopefully that you can see. This is all like melody and legato-y stuff. So these would be my lead lines. Not everything is playing there because there's lots of technical bits and bobs, but let's whack some horns with it. Some weird audio stuff going on there. I think it's probably because of this streaming stuff, I'll be honest. It's all getting compressed down into, I'd say, a sweet sugary goodness, but it's not really. I assure you it sounds much nicer than it sounds via stream, and it's compressed via millions of codecs and then coming to you via YouTube. And yeah, these are the power of virtual instruments, specifically native instruments, some of these, Kontakt libraries or sample libraries. Here's my favourite one. This is probably one that it's basically changed my life, which is Symphobia. For some reason it's actually not playing. I think that's because I've foolishly, this will be why, I've foolishly not changed the MIDI inputs to the correct instruments. So if I try that again now, it'll probably sound Let's try. Majestic, right? Really no mixing and stuff going on there. There's a couple of layers of instruments. So that's a virtual instrument, specifically a sample library. What on earth is a sample if you don't know what one of them is? It is, if I went and grabbed my piano, and just played some notes. I'll have to mute some of these because I've somehow slaved. There we go. So yeah, piano. Piano sample, yeah? I'm playing a piano on an actual piano. I'm going to record that. I might actually change my piano sound, bear with. I'm going to record it. Lovely. There's my audio file. So this is a sample, yeah? It's a sample, and a sample is just audio. It's a sound wave. You know, you'll see videos of guys doing, like, they'll make clicky sounds and turn them into drum kits and drops and rises and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. That is a sample. I could literally, I'm not going to, but I could go and record a moth farting, turn it into something. That's a sample, right? So when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, it's just a sound. What is then MIDI? Well, MIDI is, if I was to play that exact same thing, definitely not going to play the exact same thing because I don't even remember what I played. But tell you what I'll do, I will delete that audio file there and then just re-record on both. Notice how I've got both. I've got both a piano sample and I've got the MIDI. The MIDI is literally note by note. It's like musical data in space and time. You've got the note data, you've got the keyboard and controller data. The keyboard is controlling the notes, hence the terminology here. And then, yeah, I will, if my performance was particularly sloppy, which looking at that, it absolutely was not great, well, you can start doing syncing and quantizing and all sorts of things. You can do pitch changing and go, oh, didn't like that in that key, let's whack it up into that key, let's add extra notes. Guess what I can do with that then? So that was a piano I recorded, wasn't it? Down here. Here's the musical notes. What I could do is, let's say I didn't change all that timing and kept it as jank as it was, and went and put that then on a string section. Yeah. Let's see how that sounds. Obviously need to hear the piano as well. Now, first thing you hear, oh my god, what are the strings doing? It's because I had the sustain pedal down, so I can go and find the controlling thing, which is sustain. And here, this is what my foot was doing in real time. So I know it's caused a problem, that, so I could just delete it. Can't do that with a live performance, but go and, oops, I've deleted everything. That's a problem. Let's go and delete all the sustain data so that I wasn't hitting the sustain pedal on the strings. Right, so those notes are then going into this sample, or the sample library, sorry, I do apologise. It's going into my sample library, and this piece of software is then going, right, let's play it, let's do all these things. So that's what a sample library is then, it's a library, I know it sounds ridiculous saying this, but it's literally a library of samples. The trick is, though, that they're programmed in a way which makes it, you get the live feedback like it's an instrument. So Mellotron was basically the first ever sampling device that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. Please do correct me, because I don't pretend to be the fountain of all knowledge. And a Mellotron basically went, oh, let's get a weird flute sound, and, you know, you play a Mellotron and it sounds like it's playing a flute, or very similar, like, well, it's the earliest concept of it, really. So you then go upscale that technology and idea, you know, tens of years. I can now literally play a virtual orchestra from the beauty of my bedroom. Not only do that, but sound really good. Now, this particular sample library is 15 years old. It's probably older, actually. So it's not even the most modern, but it sounds brilliant. So, how on earth does that work? Is this virtual? Is it synthesis? How does it work? Well, much like I've just played my actual piano in to my DAW, if I had this microphone I've got here and went and got to an actual piano and played a C note and then a D note, I appreciate the piano stopped playing there, so go play a C note. Alright, go play a lower C and an upper C. Every single variation of those notes gets recorded, mapped to point every single part of the keyboard, low velocity, high velocity. They use all sorts of different things. They might record it really close, really far. You see on this particular one here, you've got a stage, you've got a close. You know, it says loading additional microphones, please wait. It's literally pulling some person who played a cello or a string section, this in this case it's an entire orchestra, playing middle C with, like, you know, probably tens of thousands of pounds worth of microphones with tens of thousands of pounds worth of other gear, all for the sake of, in this case, this was like £1,000 back in the day, right? But it's an expensive piece of software. They don't have to be so expensive. Some of my best plugins are like a £30 piano. Bam, sounds amazing. So there's a really important thing to distinguish here, which is this should never take away from the fact that an actual musician, like a celloist or, you know, violinist, playing a piece of music will replace them. I don't think it's intended to do that. In some circumstances, it can, you know, and what I'd say from an ethical perspective as a musician who unfortunately can't really perform because of my own innate issues and stuff, you know, this empowers people like me to make music and score it and do all sorts of things. But the end goal in most proper production scenarios, should you have the budget and the luxury and everything else, is you then go and you master or mix, sorry, not master, you'll go and mix something that you might be able to take to an actual studio with actual musicians and go, right, I've composed this piece of music, I've exported all these lines, this is cello line, this is the bass, this is this is that. Okay, and now here is, you know, can you go and record that for me and play it? And then an actual orchestra would go and do that, you know. So, but you could then make the dummy mix, the dub mix, I think it's called specifically, that they then can listen to and go, all right, that's how the song goes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and, you know, obviously these musicians they can read by bloody sight, so they're phenomenal, obviously. But yeah, so that's that. We then go into, like, this isn't necessarily just a string thing. So if you sat listening thinking, strings, they're not my thing, you know, maybe you want a Roland TR8 or TR08, whatever it's called, drum machine. And, you know, I think those things are like probably £6,000, something like that. Right, just go and get some samples for one. Some fella will literally have one. He's recorded it and gone, right, I'm going to mix and master those samples down so that when you play a C on your piano, it does a kick drum of a TR8. Same for, like, anything you can possibly imagine it's done. They normally cost a bit for the good samples, and you can just find sample files, which is literally the raw audio of a guy whacking his TR8 or whatever. What normally happens is they get kind of mixed and mastered and then put into these software packages called sample libraries. Yeah. So, apologies. So this one, as an example, is it's a Kontakt library. They're the most widespread ones, managed by Native Instruments. You can see I've got all sorts of things in here. Basses, mutations of Damage, which is drums, Tina Guo, who's an amazing cellist, all sorts of stuff in here. I've got way more than this, right? Hurdy-gurdy, that's a fun one. Yeah, and this is just a fraction. And yeah, it lets me create amazing and beautiful sounds. These two keyboards have got the Nords. The reason I got them is I can actually make my own sounds, yeah, and export them as custom samples into my bloody keyboards. So if someone ever said to me, oh, you know, we want you to perform something live based off something, I'm like, well, I can go and do that. I can literally go and get the sample, map it key by key using software, right? And then suddenly I've got, you know, maybe it's I want a Prophet, like a synthesizer sound. Well, I can go and find some samples for it, mix it, master it, chuck it in some samples. Bam, got a Prophet. Incredibly powerful technology, but you go into a whole world of, is it the same? Is it? Depends. And that's why there's millions of different sample libraries and things that exist. It's because not all sample libraries are made the same. They all are programmed slightly differently. So I don't want to spend too much time on the programming, but if I look at this one here, this is a viola, Cremona Quartet, gorgeous sound. I'll just play it very quickly. Just a legato sound, right? If I want to play that in chords, guess what? It behaves a bit weird. That's because it's programmed to do this like intelligent legato-y virtuoso thing. So it doesn't quite do it. Same as if one plays to something staccato. It doesn't quite sound as the same as this, which is actual staccato. Or the pizzicato-y stuff. Bit quiet, that one, but you get the idea. There's all these different things, like parameters of playing an actual instrument, that the way they work around it is you have like an expression controller or modulation, like a mod wheel like this, that will then control, you'll see here, the dynamics. So, yeah, you've got the vibrato. So that's another thing. I could control this with my foot if I wanted to. Yeah, but you see how it's not necessarily as intuitive as you'd think, because they're all programmed slightly differently, and you've got to kind of learn that with them. Another example then is, let's look at, this is one of my favourite plugins, String Murmurations, right? Look at this. This is a weird thing that happens because of my dodgy controller, but phenomenal plugin, yeah, but it's very slow, really long attacks. So if you want to do some kind of big epic, like instant, you know, like let's find, let me just quickly change, I'll double this one up dead quickly. Mindful of not waffling on too much, especially subject and all that, but still I don't want to take up too much time. Let's say I put this into staccato and I'm going to put a mixed ensemble. You know, I'm just going to mix them all together, stuff it, see what this sounds like. Oops. Those two together. It's doing velocity, change it to mod wheel instead. So that when I do my mod wheel, right? Sounds phenomenal, right? It's just one layer. You can combine these together with others, and before you know it, you've got like millions of different sound combinations. Get a piano. Combined with my actual piano sounds. Just lower the piano. That's just my piano. Let's get that together then with the... You'll hear a little bit of latency, which is something I'll go through in a minute. Cracking stuff, yeah. Because I'm recording live and I've got my audio set up strange, there's some little quirks of that which I'll go through, but you get the idea, right? Not every plugin or sample library is made equally. That then brings me to the technical requirements. So these things can take up a lot of space. This particular one, I think, is about 35 gigabytes of hard drive space. And then when it's loaded as a baseline, it's 1.2 gigabytes of RAM. Just for that one instrument. The next one is, I think, the same, 1.1 gigabytes. Symphobia is 1.5 gigabytes. So if I've only got 16 gig of RAM, I'm probably only going to be able to load like a handful of these. Yeah. Otherwise, my computer will start chugging. Now, I'm going to artificially do that just to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to enable everything. I have to watch volumes and stuff, but I'm just going to play something. It's not going to sound great because it's a mixture of legato stuff, but just let's see if I can get one of these instruments up that will show the CPU usage somewhere. Right up at the top here, CPU and disk. Just going to play a D with like another D underneath it. Now you might have heard that click, yeah? So even though it says only CPU use is 20%, if you look at the bar, the bottom left, just over here with this little red thing, this is my CPU usage and the load. So them clicks are when it's getting overloaded, yeah? So there's two ways around this, especially if you're new into music production. There's two things that control it. One is your CPU power, of course. The other thing is there's an interaction that happens between sample rate as well as your buffer size on your device. I'm not going to go into sample rate too much because it's quite controversial, actually. People have all sorts of strong feelings on it. One thing that is certain is if you have a proper audio interface and you're having some type of issue with performance in your DAW, your workstation, you can change the buffer size. Now, depending on the buffer size, or your interface, you get anything from 32 samples up to 1,000, sometimes beyond that. The higher the buffer size, the more processing power, not power, but headroom, let's say, it's a better way of putting it, you will have at the cost of having higher latency. So input latency is literally the time it takes between me clicking that and it getting registered by the system. The output is then that coming out and back to my monitors, which in this case is my headphones, right? The whole thing together is called round trip latency. So some software shows you that straight away, some it doesn't. But the higher you go, so if I go to 2000 here, look at that. So my round trip latency is about 100 milliseconds. So between me playing and it coming back out, it's about 100 milliseconds, yeah? Not necessarily a problem if you're doing writing by keyboard, like, drawing it in or whatever, but if you're playing stuff in, especially with live audio, you're going to suffer. Just experiment and see what works best for you. I kind of try and minimize and have the best of both worlds. 192 works quite nicely, but what you'll see is if I go to 100, slam my keyboard, firstly nothing loaded, instant click, bam, hear that? Awful sound, I'm not going to replicate it, but instant overload on my system. So how do you fix it then if you can't change your buffer or maybe your CPU band or whatever? The way to do it instrument by instrument. So let's say I've got this string here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fix all the MIDI. So I'm just going to quantize it dead quick. I'll put it over this way. Quantize all the lengths and the ends and stuff. And then just quick replay it. Sounds very unmusical, appreciate that, but it's just a demonstration, yeah. And then I can actually export this. Some software lets you export it literally in place, so Cubase lets you do that. You can render it in place. I'm going to just export this. That's fine, overwrite. I did this before as a tester. And what I will do is I'm actually going to re-import this now as an audio file. It's not done it because I forgot to click the option. That's my bad. So after export, create new audio track. That's what I meant to do. So try again. Now, this is really important, this, because if you've got some type of limitation, what will happen is, there we go. So this is the exact same thing. Now, what I could do if I wanted to, right, let's pitch shift this up. Pretty sure that went up. So here's the, sorry, just hit the wrong thing there. So here's the original strings with the audio version, right? Quite cool. The reason exporting gets good, if you're someone who's not perfectionist like me, and you're just like, right, I'm happy with that, bam, get it exported. It's because when you're playing these instruments, you're literally playing 1.3 gigabytes is sat in the RAM currently. Now, if this sample was 35 gigabytes like the other ones, the Cremona ones, one of them, it literally uses about 14 gigabytes of memory. I shit you not. 14 gigabytes of RAM. As long as it's an enabled track, it will eat it up, right? Because you're talking like 48 gigabytes of, I'm not sure if I've gone through this already, so apologies for repeating myself, but an orchestra that's played every single note on a keyboard, close mic position, distant mic position, ambient mic position, with cello, bass, like everything you can imagine. They'll pre-mix it down and do all sorts of stuff with it, but you're basically streaming tens of thousands of kilobytes, every millisecond into your DAW. You're then probably processing it, you're compressing it, you're doing all sorts of stuff to it. And it's so taxing. Like, people think gaming's like hardcore. Oh, I've got, 5080 and I do this and this. You don't know performance struggles until you've started, working with VSTs and multi-instrument packs. Try and then factor this, I said this on my last video, but try and then factor that into mixing and producing music live in the fashion that, I currently do specifically. It's really technical task, and it's okay to have some issues with it. As long as you know, like, okay, I need to just cut back, let's export that, disable the track, do my thing, okay, re-enable it, let's do another layer, or alternatively, if you love sample libraries, there's lots of optimization stuff you can do regarding that, but you'll only know that when you start it, basically. So, and you don't have to spend loads of money to get started, and it's loads of free sample libraries and stuff. But yeah, the magic, because when you spend the time like understanding specific programs, like for example, I've got Synphobia here, which I've basically spent half my life with. You've got like the BBC stuff, you've got so many different ones, and they all have their own slight different timbres and tones. And one of the things I have found, and something to be aware of, is just be careful with sample libraries that are popular, because music is incestuous in nature in terms of melodics, harmonies, chords, all that stuff. What makes it unique is the sonic signature of every single song, every kit, every guitar, every... You know, you might know a song's played with a particular guitar and a particular amp or whatever, but I think where it gets... This is the only real downside of sample libraries, is the really good ones I can pick out straight away. Like, if I'm listening to a song... I did this with the soundtrack lately and it was awful. But I was like, oh, that's a Tina Guo cello. Oh, and that's the other Tina Guo cello. Oh, and that's Cine Samples, and that's East West, and that's Spitfire. Because you just know. It's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, but making something then from a sample library and turning it into your own creation is a challenge, which, if you're someone like me who loves sound design and making their own sounds with it, then you'll be fine. But, you know, there is this little caveat of everyone tends to use the same set of samples because they're good. But, you know, you've just got to be careful and be creative. Don't just use sample libraries to kind of do away all your own creativity. You know, I do some really weird and wonderful stuff with a lot of my strings. Like, I'll layer them in strange ways. I'll put them through chorus and phase pedals and put a synth bass underneath them. Because, I mean, if I do that as an example, actually, let's do a high C major. C minor, rather. C major and minor. Hard, isn't it? Right. Get the volumes right. So this is just with a mono bass. Obviously, you've got to get the balance right, timbre-wise, yeah? But it's quite a disgusting bass, that, but you'll be shocked that if you layer that with a cello, and let's put some of these other strings in. I'm going to play a low C. Sounds great, right? Let me whack the... Sorry, it's doubling up the layer because I've got this plugged into MIDI as well. Let me try one last time, sorry. That swell is from the synth, yeah, but that's my little thing, which, yeah, you can have that one as a free one. So yeah, I think that's probably, without waffling on too much longer, I'll wrap it up there. But to summarise, sample libraries are awesome. Just be mindful that they are quite intensive on your computer. There's a couple of workarounds and stuff, but as I've said, there's so many different ones, you know, and just search sample libraries and you go straight to Native Instruments probably. You'll see hundreds of different plugins and go and find what you want. Do you want an electric piano sample that sounds like this? Oops, that's not a piano. I need to go and enable the track. 2 secs. Gorgeous Rhodes sound, or, you know, you can go and find something, basically. There's something for everyone. Yeah, hopefully you like the format. Don't worry if there's some question or something you've got, just send me a message. I will do a video on whatever people ask for, because I just love this shit. And yeah, that being said, video is already 30 odd minutes long, so I will leave it there. But yeah, thanks for watching. And I know this won't get many views, but if that's the one person that gets inspired or gets something helpful from it, absolutely don't mind any sort of embarrassment or whatever for the sake of just getting out there to one person. So yeah, cheers and have a lovely rest of your day or evening, wherever you are.